and welcome to the world of Happy Melly and Management 3.0. Today we are having our newest teammate, Sam, interview our oldest teammate in many ways, Jürgen Appelo, about his new book, Managing for Happiness. He's the founder of Happy Melly, our business network for people dedicated to be happier at work, and of the Management 3.0 method of revolutionizing management and making people happier at work. So he has his fourth book coming out, Managing for Happiness, in June, and we're really excited. So I'll let you guys take it away and get to know each other so other people can learn all about the book and about Jürgen Appelo.
Excellent. No, I'm really happy to be here. So this is about me getting to know you and also everyone getting to know you. So I've got a couple questions. The first one being, so for people who don't know you and are getting to know you, you've called yourself a creative networker. What do you mean by that for those who just don't know?
First of all, Sam, it's great talking with you finally as our newest team member. And this is a perfect way of introducing each other. To answer your question, I like the idea that we are moving beyond the industrial era and the informational era into a creativity era in terms of the kinds of industries that humans are involved in. We are automating more and more. And for example, instead of knowledge workers, where people hoarding knowledge and get paid for the knowledge that they have, this is about information in their heads. We are moving towards creative workers, because anyone can look up anything nowadays on the internet. You don't need to have the knowledge in your head. You just have to be good at finding the knowledge and using it in creative ways. So for me, that means that economy is still crucial, but you don't have to have it in your head anymore. You have to use it and find it and produce it. So it's about creative workers, and I like to change that bit.
It's quite creative.
It is.
So is that shift actually, leads me into the next question. Is that something that inspired you to launch the Happy Melly Business Network?
Definitely, because I first of all, I needed people to work with, because I had so much work. I had to practice what I preach and delegate to others. But then also, I thought it would be great to have our own little playground where we can experiment with things, where we can invent new practices, where I can try things out on my own team before telling the rest of the world that they should be doing this. So my idea for Happy Melly was to have an experimental organization with as its purpose helping people be happier in their jobs. That's the external purpose. But the internal purpose would be to run experiments, try things out on ourselves, and then I would be able to talk about it and write about it.
Well, and that actually, again, you're segueing quite well. It is about I'm interested in this experiment because I've never really heard of anyone doing this before. I mean, I've jumped onto this experiment, and so it's very interesting, very avant-garde. And you mentioned kind of what you're hoping to achieve with it. I'm wondering if so far anything's really surprised you with how it's gone, or shocked you, or jumped out at you. It's something that you weren't expecting.
Oh, good question. Well, it is difficult to do things in ways that are uncommon, and that takes a lot of communication and sometimes confusion. Like, it's very easy to do things the traditional way. We all know how it works with employees and signing contracts, or you work with freelancers, etc., etc. But we have found a way that is an experiment ongoing to have something in between, where people feel like freelancers, but they also feel like they're working on a team as regular employees. It is a bit of a sweet spot in between. But that is uncommon, and therefore it needs more explanation, and it can lead to confusion, because sometimes people don't know, are we an employee or are we a freelancer? It's a bit of both. And that is by design, because these are the types of experiments that we are running. It means that it's fun to play with things and invent different kinds of organizations and tell other people about it. At the same time, I noticed it can be frustrating every now and then for me, for the people that we work with, that things are not clear. It would have been very clear if I had started a traditional organization with me as a CEO and then a human resource manager and then a marketing manager, etc., and have some departments and everything. And well, that would be clear, but I would not have been practicing what I preach. So the confusion is maybe not what I expected, but understandable now given what we're doing. But I take it for granted.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a very good answer. Confusion, and I mean, also you mentioned communication, but it is an experiment. Is it hard getting people to sort of adopt a new way of management, like going into management 3.0 as well, but a whole new mentality and just a new way of thinking?
Not when you talk with them individually, and we hire people individually, and then they say, "Oh, this is great. This is so much more fun than in my previous job." But when you talk with an organization, people who are already working together, then they already have systems. It's almost impossible for people, which is odd, which is fascinating from a psychological perspective. The individual people, they would love to change, but when you take them together in their existing environment, then suddenly everything becomes really, really hard. Because they have all these things in place already, systems and bureaucracy and ways of doing things, and they say, "Oh no, we can't do that around here." They would love to, but sadly, we cannot do this around here. But every individual person says the same thing. We can't do that around here. So that's strange.
And so I'm wondering, what do you do to sort of help flip that switch?
I shake them by the shoulders. I'm a writer and a speaker. That's my job. That's what I love. So I write about it. I talk with people. I speak at conferences and company events. And that is a part of what should be happening in organizations. There should also be people locally who do coaching, consultancy, and lead organizations towards a better future, whether they are internal coaches or external coaches. I cannot provide that job. I can only light the fire or offer a spark, which is what I'm often hired for at companies, to be the outsider, to shake everything up. But then others have to take over from me because I cannot lead them by the hand and make things happen. But I have heard of some great progress that companies have made, and then they thank me afterwards of bringing the message. But the message is often not even my message. I simply borrow the message again from other great, inspiring people. I just travel around the world as the global bumblebee, spreading those messages.
No, it's a great message to spread, and like you said, it sounds like you light the fire, and then they go with it, or at least they try to.
Yeah.
You've said that nurturing is a key ingredient, and I'm wondering, what is the key ingredient for people to nurture innovation at work? What can people do to help that?
I would say it is running experiments, not being afraid to try something, and then half of the times realizing, oh, this is not working. Okay, well, it was nice to try, worth a try. So let's try something else. This fearlessness, this almost naivety of let's try this. That playfulness, that sometimes almost childlike approach to running an organization, I think that is what people need. And it is missing in many organizations because there's often a focus on successes, on outcomes that need to be good. And then the problem is that people fear trying things because there's always a risk that things fail. And they don't want to be seen as the ones who introduced something that failed. Well, I have no problems with that whatsoever. I happily talk about all my failures in the past. I have many to mention. They also have some good successes. And once you have that mindset of, oh, well, it's all great to tell some stories about that over coffee. Interesting enough, people love it when I talk about my failures, and they compliment me for being so open and honest, but they themselves have difficulty talking about such things in their organization, apparently. So I think that's one of the most important.
Well, I was gonna ask, in terms of the fear, what do you do to get people past that? Because you're right, I think fear of failure is huge. How do you help people sort of move beyond that and say, okay, I'm just gonna go for it?
So the best I can do is lead by example, and just tell people, like I do sometimes at keynote speeches, hey, I wasted €1 million. Did you do that? And it wasn't even my money. and then I joke about my failed startup, and as one of the many examples of my past. And just be lighthearted about it. That is how we learn together. And leading by example is, I think, the best way to people to admit that some things that I tried. Yeah, well, I had.
I'll ask them, but you are so successful. You know, you're an author, a presenter, a writer, an entrepreneur, trainer, manager. I mean, a bumblebee. What advice would you give to people who want to accomplish what you have at such a young age? You know, what would you say to them?
Well, it took me 20 years to find out what I love doing, and also what would make me successful. But I never gave up. I always have ideas. I have ideas every week, basically, of things that I could be doing, and I have to discard most of them because I simply don't have the time anymore. I didn't give up trying to find a job that I love, because only if you do something that you really love doing, then you can persist and continue. And there have been many opportunities where people invited me to do stuff that I didn't really fancy doing. Now, it would have been tempting to just take the offer and take the money. Would have been nice, but I wasn't interested. Like, I don't do coaching, I don't do consultancy, I don't give Scrum classes, etc. I don't do workshops anymore myself. I did them, many of them in the past, but I delegated all of that. So I have to be very, very clear in the things that I don't do, because I want to do only the things that I love doing. And when you do the things that you love doing every day, sometimes days suck, but that's in every job, of course. But if you have a job that you love, then you can continue running experiments. I'm afraid that is what is missing in most organizations. And I'm segueing myself very nicely back to the starting point of this conversation, because that is what Happy Melly is about. It's about helping people to find happiness in their jobs and have a job that they love. It is also one of the 12 steps to happiness that I advocate with my book and some of my speeches. One of the 12 is having experience. It is an experience. It is part of play, and it makes people happy. So it is all related.
It's an excellent answer, and you did segue yourself quite well. Now I'm going to segue.
I'm quite good at
that. So Jen's going to take over the book part.
You're muted. Yep.
Process, but we'll see how that goes. Okay. So I guess part of it is to preface to those that don't know, your third book was Workout, which was a series of steps, and this has been adapted, enhanced, and there's some new parts for this new book, which is publishing with Wiley next month, Managing for Happiness. Now, for someone that's read Workout, why should they read it? And for someone that hasn't, why should they read it?
Well, first of all, they should buy it, of course. even if they have already read it, because it's just another item that you need to have in your bookcase because it looks good. There are 2 new chapters on a serious note, because when I wrote Workout, I had a huge backlog of things that I wanted to write about, and some things just dropped off because there was no time anymore, and the book was pretty big already anyways. So I just stopped. And then I sold the Workout book, and I signed a contract with Wiley to republish it as Managing for Happiness. And then I thought, which chapters were actually missing that I would have wanted to have? And that is Moving Motivators and Happiness Door. And at the same time, I asked all my readers, which were the chapters that you liked the least, which were the least popular. And I took those out, because the publisher wanted the book, or needed the book, a little bit smaller in terms of the number of pages. Otherwise, it was impossible to produce at such a scale. And so we took some chapters out. I wrote some new chapters. Every chapter now also has a new page called Tips and Variations, because ideas from people submitted to me over email, or stories that were posted as blog posts, and that I borrowed some ideas from. So every chapter now has a Tips and Variations page with a link to the website to find more stories, because new ones always keep popping up. So that is new, and here and there I tightened the text a little bit. The publisher said every now and then I wandered a bit in an unclear direction, and so I tightened some chapters here and there.
Very interesting. So in this situation, now you're in your 4th book. 2 now have been published with major publishing companies, and 2 have been self-published. And your last one, Workout, was a mix of self-publishing and crowdfunding publishing through the Happy Melly Express publishing brand. What have you learned about the different experiences, especially when you're talking about not the same book, but a very similar book in 2 very unique processes, I would assume?
Like is the multi-step approach, where you first, when you're working on a book, you get people involved, your closest fans want to help you out while you're writing. And I did that with the Workout book. Every chapter was already available as a free download, but I asked people for feedback. And it was also a nice incentive to build a mailing list, because people had to sign up to the mailing list, and that's important to have a list of readers as a marketing tool for when the book comes out through self-publishing or a publisher. So that's the first step. And then the second step, which is what I did with Workout, is to self-publish it, just to see how much can you sell by yourself. Is it something that people actually want to pay money for? And you have total freedom as a self-publisher. And that is nice, because publishers are always nagging about things being hard and being difficult and being expensive, which is all true. But as a publisher, you completely decide for yourself how you publish it, but you have to sell it. You have to prove that you can sell the book. And that's what I did. I sold 10,000 copies of the Workout book. And by that time, when you've been able to prove that you can sell the book, then a publisher gets interested and says, hey, we would like to scale that up to a larger number of books. And that has worked nicely for me with the re-release of Workout, which now becomes Managing for Happiness. And it also means that I've already proven that I can sell a full color book in a horizontal format. So now Wiley is going to publish it like that. And I would never have been able to pull this off if I had gone straight to publisher with an unpublished book and said, I want to publish this full color in a horizontal format. They would have laughed in my face, I'm quite sure. So this intermediate step of self-publishing was really good. So I think I'm considering repeating this 3-step approach. First, free chapters, then self-publishing, and then, if possible, a traditional approach. Because, face it, you reach many more people through the traditional channels on bookstores and libraries and universities that you just cannot reach as a self-publishing author.
And that was a great segue to the next question about what makes your book different from, because there are, I would guess, hundreds of thousands of management texts now. And one of them, as you said, it's extremely colorful, extremely filled with cartoons and illustrations and fun photos when there are photos. And it's unusually shaped. It's more the horizontal view. So what else makes your book different and stand out from all the other management texts? And there's a lot.
Yeah, well, basically you answered most of the question, I would say. I wanted the book to be different and remarkable and fun and playful, because I want to express the message that managers have the right to have a bit of fun too in their work. I mean, I like my job now that I am a different manager from what I was in the past. And I hated my job, but that was because I did traditional management practices and they all sucked and they didn't work. And now I think it's fun managing a system like Happy Melly. So I wanted to express that with the book that was different from all the other more traditional management books. So I made it colorful. I made it horizontal instead of vertical. And another difference is this one is full of concrete practices, because many books are full of theory and principles, like be a servant leader and be a systems thinker, and all of that is quite true. But then that still leaves people puzzled, thinking, okay, what do I do on a Tuesday afternoon? How can I be a systems thinker on Wednesday morning? It is not very actionable. So I wanted a book with practices that people can try the next day. Every chapter had to be something concrete that people can run their own experiments with. So that is why it has this subtitle, Games, Tools, and Practices, to motivate any team.
They're all smaller experiments, which is nice too, or some things that are actionable without a lot of input or planning ahead, which is great. I had mentioned to Sam, you're the person I know most well-read than anyone else in the world. You devour books like nobody else. And of course, as the readers will see throughout the book, you reference a lot of other influencers. Which management or leadership text or influencer has influenced your writing the most? Or who do you admire and look to emulate? Wow.
That would be a different person every week, I suppose. So that's really hard. I reference indeed many people because of the ideas that they have, and I borrow from many sources and try to turn it into something cohesive in my work. Let's see, ones that stand out are, of course, Gary Hamel, who is famous for his future of management work. And Henry Mintzberg is also a great writer, great ideas that he has. But also some books about actual companies, such as Creativity Inc., about Pixar Animation Studios by Ed Catmull. It was a fantastic book, very, very inspiring how they run their animation studio. If there's one company that I point to when people ask me about Management 3.0 examples, I say, well, look at what Pixar is doing. There are hundreds of people, nobody has a job title, everyone is having fun creating great movies, and nobody knows probably what Management 3.0 is at that company, but that doesn't matter because they do what makes sense for them, keeping people happy while producing great products. So those are just a couple of examples, but I'm reading all the time. So there's probably new examples that I can give you next week.
And you'll put it on your Goodreads. Everyone can go to your Jürgen Appelho's Goodreads and see how many books you really read. And you don't just read management text. So is there an idea to one day write something else?
Well, I always say that one day I will be writing a novel. That has been on my back burner for at least 20 years also. It could take another 20 years. I don't know. I'm having too much fun and enjoying my current work, traveling around the world, speaking with enthusiastic people. So why should I write a novel now? But it could be that at some point I get sick of the traveling and hand over the job to somebody else, a younger generation, who knows, by that time. And I might retire to some nice sunny area where I can write a novel or something.
And not actually retire then. Just work on something.
Yeah, I would still be hoping to make money off the novel. I'm quite sure.
So our time is running out. So I guess the final question should be, if people have their own questions for you, what is the best way to contact you? To ask you about your book?
Well, I prefer that people ask questions on the socials, on Twitter and Facebook or whatever, so that any answers I give are public for everyone. So feel free to contact me on Twitter or Facebook, LinkedIn with the question. Email, difficult. It's so many emails that I have to answer, and it's all business related usually. About the events, etc. So please don't ask me questions over email. I just can't handle that. But social accounts, yeah, sure. I look forward to seeing people's questions there.
And of course, if they join the Happy Melly Business Network, they can access you through our exclusive Slack channel as well.
Indeed, I forgot to mention that, so thanks for pointing out. Yes, people can go to our Slack channel if they are Happy Melly members, which takes just a couple of euros per year. It's laughably cheap. But it's just like a symbolic contribution to be a member of this cool club that we call the Happy Melly member.
Cool.
Exactly. And yes, and I hang out on Slack and address people's questions there as well when they pop up.
Thank you so much, you guys, and we're really excited to get our hands on the copy of your book soon in June.
Yes, thank you, Jürgen. This was great.
Me too.